Welcome to Village in Motion this Thursday, January 28th. I'm Clint Lambert. I'm the host today on Village in Motion. And I am very pleased to welcome to the show today our Executive Director, Ben Cornthwaite, and the President of the Resident Council, Mary Sue Garner. Welcome.
Thank you.
Glad to have you with us.
Good morning.
Good to be here.
We always hear about management in the council and you guys doing things together, you guys having all these ideas about this, that, and the other. What's the relationship really like?
You know, I'll speak first to help to fill in the blanks on some of this, Mary Sue. But you know, the way that I look at the role of the resident council and kind of the relationship of the management team is really a critical, foundation and critical, relationship for us in the community, and for many reasons. But most importantly, the council are representatives of the residents, and often we hear of the desire for resident input to have been sought on particular decisions or key initiatives, right. And I think the management team looks to that relationship and to the role of the council to help vet some of those ideas, strategies, and or sometimes a matter of helping to establish priorities. Yes. For where do we focus our efforts? we want to do this many things, but we can only accomplish this many. Right. How do we make sure that our priorities and our energies are focused on the right areas? And so I think the establishment of the committees that then support the council and then the management's team's inner workings with those working committees, I think creates that relationship. So I look at it as a very critical relationship, and in saying all of that, not the yes sir, yes ma'am, perfect idea, this is all great. So what I'm getting at is not the rubber stamp of right. what management wants or thinks is important. We agree. There should be a healthy give and take on that, and healthy pushback, healthy dialogue to make sure that we're calibrated appropriately.
Okay. Mary Sue, first before you say anything, congratulations
Thank you.
Being the new president of the council. We look forward to a great year from the council under your leadership. But
thank you.
Given what Ben has said, how does the council interact with management? What happens?
We interact with him all the time. First of all, as president, I'm meeting with Ben once a week. And every other week we meet one-on-one. The other weeks we meet with our executive teams. So Brian also comes, and then our vice president and secretary, Vice President Gray Parks, who's behind that camera, and Carolyn Nagler, our secretary. The three of us sit down with them, and we talk about whatever needs to be talked about. So we're in touch weekly that way, right. Formally. But informally, it's all the time. Here we just, before this show, we talked a little bit about some things. And they listen to us. Not only do they listen to us, they ask, what do you think about this? How do you feel? What do you think we should do? Do you think this will work? And if you know the three of us, we give our opinions. We don't sit back quietly. We all say what we think, and we're trying to represent the residents. And the management is available all the time. You can just, they walk through the halls, you stop, you talk to them, you make an appointment, they will talk to you. The committees each work with the directors of the departments or the managers, subcommittees, and there's a really good relationship going on, and there's a good exchange of information. The parking policy is one of those where the residents they did a study, they did preparation work, and then as a result we have a policy right. that is still being tweaked. We need to say that.
Yes.
And right now it's not working too well because of all the snow. But it's being worked on. How do we improve things as we go along? But the residents are involved in that process.
Right. So the council really provides the pool to pull ideas from immediately as needed by management.
That's right. And if you think about it, the way that the committees are then set up that support the council and really, frankly, support the management team are in all of those functional areas of importance. So you've got resident life, and you've got dining services, you've got the medical center in Garden Ridge, you've got the ancillary health team, which is a new committee this year. You've got general services, you've got a communications committee, you have a sales committee, and you have a finance committee.
Right.
And so when you look at that, those are all of the major business lines or major departments that we operate with here on campus. And so we're able to kind of get into those departmental specific areas within that domain and flesh some of those things out together. So it's a really nice partnership. And so is it feasible for us, the management team, to seek input from every resident on every decision? No way. And in fact, we can't necessarily always seek every decision through those working committees, but the big ones, the forward-facing ones, the ones that have significant resident impact, my objective as the executive director is to ensure that we are doing that. Now, if I were to give myself or my team a grade on that in 2015, I think we did a better job than we had in previous years. However, there's still opportunity for us to do better. So I would have given us probably a B- in that, in saying that that I think we made a very intentional effort to do so, but there's also some things that sneak through the cracks or sneak through the back door, so to speak, of elements that don't go through the process as formally as we'd like.
Right.
And that's where I think we're always jockeying together to say, how did this happen? How do we make sure that this doesn't happen again in the future? So that because I really believe that we make better decisions collectively together as a team, residents and management working together. One example that I think is living, breathing, and current is, through the events of this past weekend, through the snowstorm. And
great example.
I heard so many things from, or so many points of feedback from residents, from visitors, even from staff, that said it just felt really good this weekend, and there was a general sense of positivity.
Yes.
There was a general sense of helpfulness and working together, and everything got done that needed to get done.
Right.
And I think we all felt good in the midst of that. To me, that's the culture that I'd like for our campus, and the relationship between management and RAC to continuously work toward maintaining that sense of spirit, that sense of culture. That to me is where we get the best things done.
Well, I'm going to correct you on one thing. It's not a rack.
Did I say RAC?
You said RAC.
Shame on me. The council.
There you go.
Yeah, I don't know if all the residents realize the reason in regards to that is that in all of the other communities, it's resident advisory council, and even though we get pins that say resident advisory council, it's not. We do not use that term because it sounds like torture in regards to it. So we use the term resident council or the council. But things have really improved over the years from my standpoint in regards to the openness of management. Mary Sue, have you been feeling that?
Oh, absolutely. But I want to go back to one thing. I would give the management a solid B for
Okay.
grade. I think B and rising.
Okay.
And I also want to talk about the storm and the resident volunteers and how they just said, what can we do? They just came out of the doors saying, what can I do here? And they were doing all kinds of things.
Right.
And that was really important. And yesterday at a meeting, Roy O'Connor said that he had been talking to his fellow directors. They were giving reports about what happened at each of their communities, and everyone was saying how wonderful their staff was and what they did. He was the only one who said that we had our resident volunteers. None of the others apparently used resident volunteers like we did.
That's tremendous.
And they were all saying, how did you do that?
Yeah.
And it was just a matter of residents saying, we want to help.
Yeah. And for management to be open enough to say yes.
Yes,
Do help us.
exactly. Exactly. Because I think in the past we've been turned down for things
Yes.
like that.
Yeah.
Now I did hear that several people asked if they could help with the snow removal,
Yeah.
and Ben said no to that.
There's something about residents working a snowblower that just doesn't.
I think they
Well,
wanted-
I'd rather see him working a snowblower than the one gentleman that was out with oxygen on and had a cane.
Shoveling a car.
Had a
Oh,
cane
yeah.
and he was shoveling a car. So
yeah.
Well,
But-
we're happy to help in those circumstances, obviously, but I think you hit the nail on the head that residents are willing to do those
Yes.
things, and that to me is something that we want to harness. And not every day can certainly do we want residents serving on the buffet line, but I think the essence of one of, I think, the greatest assets in our community are the people that are here. And the largest base of people are our residents. And when you think about the intellectual abilities, the horsepower that exists from just from the human capital that we have here in the community, that's a very, very, very powerful tool.
Yes.
And how do we put that to good work, again, to make Green Spring a better place to live and to work? That, to me, is what's exciting about our community.
Yeah.
If I can go back to the
Please.
first question, I think
Sure.
was how are we working with the management?
Yes.
And how is it better? It is so much better because we can go back to the brown wallpaper as the prime example that we had no input at all in any of that. And we're now getting input in almost everything.
Right.
An example is the forums that are coming up. We're not going to just stick to the resident survey.
Right.
It's going to be open to whatever residents would like to talk about in that particular area.
Right.
And we're not just having 5 sessions, we're having 7 that go along with our committees.
Right.
And I just think that's a wonderful opportunity for residents to give input. And I really get upset when they say, oh, it doesn't make any difference. Well, it does.
It does make a difference.
It does. Things have changed. Last year, transportation was an example. People were saying, the bus isn't running late enough on Sunday night. Well, all of a sudden we have the bus running later on Saturday night. We now have a bus that's going to the Healthplex,
Right.
which came out of these forums. So those are 2 examples that I can think of off the top of my head.
To Wegmans and
Oh, yeah.
Trip to Wegmans,
Yeah.
they're just, they're making every effort to take care of us.
Yes.
so each functional committee can has a laundry list of things
Right.
along those lines that are accomplishments of the ideas either sprouted through the forums or sprouted through the inner workings of management and residents working together through those subcommittees. So, but we want to continue to do that, and I think the important thing is for other residents to, I would ask, have confidence in your council to be able to know that these are hardworking men and women that are doing the very best that they can to represent, the resident body,
Right.
together. And it may not capture every individual viewpoint, but I think it really is. They do a great job at trying to take that representative view and bring that to us. And where that comes to us is in the form of, here's what we're hearing,
Yes.
and here is something that we think is a significant priority that you really should consider. And that helps us, to either shift resources or to say, gosh, that was a priority B on our list. And hearing from you, it sounds like that really needs to be a priority
Right,
A,
right.
and so we should ramp our efforts up.
And so it really is important, is what I'm hearing both of you say, it's very important for residents to let the council know
Yes.
what their concerns are, what their desires are, so the council can go ahead and pass it along to you in the meetings.
I agree, and the one thing I would urge, and this is kind of a little bit of a fundamental shift that I'm trying to be more diligent with this year, is to encourage residents to also see the management team on the front end of that. And so I don't want the council to be, and certainly I'm sure the council doesn't want to be,
No.
the complaint body,
Right.
where if you have a concern, share it to the council. That's great, but give the management team the shot.
Right.
And rather than coming directly to my office, utilize the functional manager of that area. An example would be if you have a transportation concern, that you contact our transportation manager, Derek Mackert, to say, here's my issue, can you resolve this?
Right.
And if you feel like you're something's unresolved, or you got a bad answer, or something that you didn't think was appropriately handled,
Right.
I'm available to you. But I think also if you're seeing systemic issues and patterns along those lines, that's where the council, I think, can have a really good role to sit down with management team to say, we continue to hear that this area of issue is a problem.
Yeah.
So what are we doing to address those problems? And I think that's where we can kind of engage each other on some higher level thinking on what we need to do to address it.
I think it's a great point in regards to that, and I'm sure Mary Sue would be very welcoming of saying, pass those complaints on to.
That's right.
Well, and
the
that's
appropriate people.
basically what I tell people when they come and talk to me. I'm talking to more people, or more people are talking to me
Yes.
about their concerns, and a lot of them are more, I really want you to know this. And if it is a concern that has to do with general services or something else, I tell them that's where they need to go first. Have you called? If you call the first time and nothing happened, call again. Maybe go visit the office. Then come back and we'll see what we can do for you. Right. And talk to members of the committees. Let them bring it up in the committee meetings. But some of them are very small problems. Some people just want to be heard, and I think that's important. I know that I have to give myself an extra 10 minutes whenever I go somewhere because I run across people in the hall, and that's fine.
Sure. Right.
That's where they feel comfortable talking to me. But talk to all the officers, talk to all the committee chairs. They're all available. The liaisons, they will listen, and we'll see what we can do. I just dealt with 2 issues. Yesterday, I went to talk to the director of resident life about 2 different issues. And I just went in and we talked because it was I think I needed to be the one to do it. The other people just could not handle it. They were too involved in the issue, too emotional. Yeah. And I think we've resolved it. I haven't talked to everybody yet about the results, but it wasn't a problem.
Yeah. and I think often what I hear, and I have the same thing got to leave early to make sure that you're you don't want to bypass somebody that has something to share with you, but to also encourage people to utilize those right channels. And so, again, the area of general services, for example, in 2.5 million square feet of building space, I can promise you that there's a light bulb that's out, there's a tear in the wallpaper somewhere, there's a stain on the floor elsewhere, and I don't think as much foot traffic as we have through the community. I think sometimes people expect that, well, somebody else already knows this, and it's been like this for 6 months. How could you not know? Well, there are systems in place to be able to identify those issues, and submitting a work order is that system. So don't assume that we know. Don't assume that the security personnel who walked by, if they're also taking a log with every single light bulb that's out or every single nick in the paint, they're not going to be able to perform their job as standard. So I think as a community, that's where we work together to submit those ideas, and then there's a formal process for monitoring those open work orders. And if something does get old or doesn't get resolved, those to me are the things that we need to then say, hey, I know I submitted a work order on this 30 days ago. It still hasn't been done. Let's address the issue.
With that, I don't know if people realize that you have a list, a priority list of all the different things that need to be addressed during the year.
Right.
And that you go over that list with the president of the council.
Right.
To let them know what your priorities are and what will happen each quarter.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're just in the process right now. I actually met with a team yesterday from our general services. It involves kind of a wide interdisciplinary team, but our general services and project management team, finance director, and myself are kind of looking at the complete list of capital projects, special projects that are in motion, and really wanting to coordinate efforts, but also, there's some things that we have to do behind the scenes to make sure that, the cash flow is maintained through those, to make sure that the projects are appropriately funded, to make sure that we're going through the process with diligence in terms of contracts that are associated with that, and certificates of insurance, and lots of vendor management related pieces as part of that. But so we're in the process of identifying what we look to be our first quarter priorities. And at that stage, we'll then approach Mary Sue and her team to say, here's our priorities. We've got the laundry list of projects for 2016. Here's where we think we're beginning, and we'll open up the dialogue from there. And if we need to jostle some of those pieces, some of them, understandably, like insulation, for example, are ones that we're not going to want to say, let's do that in the second quarter. Let's put that project down. And so some of that will be pre-planned or predetermined. But so there's a laundry list, and where I think we can do a better job in 16 than we did in 15 is, as those projects are scheduled, that we're able to give a better, more regular, ongoing feedback to the general resident body for those, because there are times where, and in fact, there's an email I had gotten earlier this week to say, well, what about that art wall? We've been talking about that. Where is that? And so has that been scheduled? What is the timeline? And so we know some of those things, and it's a matter of then being able to broadcast what to expect.
Okay.
So
Well, you were talking about the installation. Mary Sue, did the council have anything to do in regards to the installation? I know there's 3 people that are doing something involving the sprinkler system.
Yeah, we have 3 people who have been appointed as ambassadors to the installation. We'll have to get them a nice little sign, and working with General Services, so that they will know everything that's going on. And the only name I can give you is Chuck Harding and
Vince Anger and Sharon Dreyer.
And I think they are meeting regularly, keeping track of what's happening, asking the questions that we need to ask, we need to find out. And each one has a different expertise, a different viewpoint.
Right.
Chuck is the engineer, so he's probably more into the technical. And,
Oh, yes.
yeah. And that's good. They have a different level, each different interest level, and so they will be giving us information as they get it, and that's another involvement by residents in the process, as are the 2 design teams for Garden Ridge and Town Center. Residents are there. We had a meeting last week. I think it was last week. The snow kind of made the days different. But we had a meeting of the Town Center group talking about the plans that are still in the napkin drawing stage, but they're going to the architects now. And I think residents, most of us were residents there, giving input, saying, why don't you try this instead of that? No, move the elevator over here instead of there. You need a door here. Those kinds of things. And I think we came up with some really good ideas.
I think there were 16 or 20 different revisions that we made to the plan, and these are the high level revisions. We haven't gotten into the minutiae details of things, but those substantially shape the project for what it is, and that's a great example of again, residents their input being sought, but also then taking action to really help develop to ultimately a better outcome.
And being one of those people that's on those design groups, is to see the willingness of management to say, yeah, let's move that. Let's look at that and see what we can do with it. It's not, okay, and let's move on in regards to it. It's really the thing of saying your input is valuable and it's appreciated.
And it's important to note that the residents are the ones who live in that space all the time. And the managers and the architects, they're not doing it the same way. They walk through, but we live there. And so listening to us, we have some ideas that make sense. Some of them don't. Architecturally, maybe you can't move that wall or whatever. But mostly, common sense kind of ideas. And some will work and some won't. And they are working on putting those ideas to paper. And we'll see what happens for our next meeting.
And it really is a give and take. And it is. I don't see it as being one of these things where you agree to disagree. I mean, it's really worked through of how things go in regards to it.
Yeah. I mean, one of those examples was talking about a real life example from last design council session was, so we know that Fairfax County has a requirement, above a certain square footage of area for the pool. If you exceed that square footage area, then you need a second lifeguard. Should we plan the project to stay within that, or are we saying that we should have the freedom to plan beyond that? And as a group together, we decided to say, let's not let that be a limiting factor. So let's plan beyond that, because I think we'll get to a better outcome ultimately. So, and those are all real life examples of saying, how do we vet these ideas? How do we make these suggestions so that we get to a better destination?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anything coming up that residents are going to be involved in? Any other projects that are on the forefront?
I think for me, the biggie is the resident feedback forums, and we've got coming up here on February 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. We've got resident satisfaction feedback forums. So,
and that's up on the screen, folks. If you're not looking at your screen, look at your screen.
So Tuesday, February 9th, we've got dining services and resident life, and just a quick overview. These sessions will be held concurrently in the theater and in the Akatink room, and the idea is that if you come at 10 a.m., you can park in one of the rooms, and will host, for example, on February 9th from 10 to 11,
Right.
the topic of all things dining services. And then simultaneously over in the Akatink room, we'll be hosting a same session of all things resident life. So that residents don't have to choose between those sessions. We will then swap the proctors that are leading those sessions and co-facilitating those sessions so that folks can participate in both if they so desire.
Right.
So, so those are upcoming, and I think that shapes a significant part of the priority list on the management team for 2016, and I know shapes a lot of the energies and efforts of the working committee as well.
Yes, and the council committees are going to be involved as much as the management in facilitating these sessions.
Great. And so we want everybody to come out and give their input.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
One thing before we leave this topic is people were saying, when are we going to get to see the figures, the results of last year's survey?
So at those feedback forums, originally we were going to do it on the day that we shifted our presentation for coffee to deal with the snow stuff from last week. So that was our plan, to present those on Friday. But at each of these feedback forum sessions, we're going to have the statistical results for that domain available as a handout to residents that are coming to participate in those. And on an ongoing basis, those are also available in my office if residents want to check those out as well.
Very good. We literally have about 30 seconds left. Mary Sue, anything?
I guess I'm just looking forward to the year. I'm hoping that we have an uneventful year, but that's gone by the wayside. But we survived the storm really well. So if everything goes like that the rest of the year, I will be very happy.
Yes. And we have not had any water leaks, even though we've had severe weather, and we greatly appreciate that and very pleased about that.
There's been some minor roof leaks, but nothing substantial, and obviously no sprinklers. But my piece, real quick, if I may, would be, 2016 obviously is continuing that partnership, and I just want to express, gratitude to both the former president and the current president to what a tremendous job you hold as council president here in the community, and leading teams that really truly are working to improve the lives of residents and employees here on campus, and I remain very grateful for that. So coming up on February 9th, I'll have been here a year.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's pretty close.
When you look backwards, it's been a very busy year, and but I couldn't have done it without the guidance and partnership from the resident council and the various committees. So thank you very much on behalf of the management team for all that you all continue to do in that respect.
I can say for everybody, we're glad you're here.
Thank
We
you.
are.
Yeah.
And we'll say a public happy anniversary for being here a year.
Thank you.
All right. Again, thank you both for coming this morning and sharing, and we look forward to a great collaborative year between management and residents.